Right, UFC 304. I can't believe they've done it at a stupid o'clock time for people in England, but anyways, Mick Parkin versus Łukasz Brzeski. Brzeski, in my opinion, is more talented on the feet. Yes, Mick Parkin trains with Tom Aspinall, but Brzeski has extremely good leg kicks. But when you go back to his last win, it's not impressive, even though it looks like it on paper, because I believe Walter Walker, Johnny Walker's brother, who has got a better chin than him, by the way, he looked like a can out there. He is not that good. He has just been fighting guys who are pretty much smaller than him, lying on top of them. He's got no athletic ability. Like, you look at the genetics, all of them went to his brother, but in return, they had to buff him by giving him a bad chin. But anyways, I'm going with Mick Parkin decision because what he will do, he's actually become very boring. Is pretty much jab you in the face and pretty much do like small little head movements off the center line and just keep jabbing you. He doesn't like it when an opponent starts to swing heavily. That's why he struggled against Usman. Although I believe he won that fight, it was the swinging that he did not like, because he can fight going backwards because he's got a good jab, but he doesn't like when someone's overwhelming him with multiple combinations. Brzeski ain't that type of guy. This is a poor matchmake fight for him. I don't know why the UFC gave him, and I expect him to lose a fight via decision. The only thing he might get out of the fight is he might dead Mick Parkin's leg, but I don't think he can beat him. There's no chance he gets KO'd. No, I mean, there's no chance Mick Parkin gets KO'd by Brzeski. Right, Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosbie. There is actually good value on Crosbie, and I'll tell you why. Sam Patterson, look at that fight with Yanal Ajmus, the guy from Israel. He got knocked out so bad that I believe he tried to fight the ref after, but that's not his fault. I might be wrong. But he got knocked out so bad that I don't even know what to compare that to. But I do still think Sam Patterson will win the fight. But there is value in Crosbie because of the stand-up. Sam Patterson can't strike with him. This guy beat Alex Oliveira, which on paper is not that great when you look at his UFC career, but it's a nice win to have on your record. But anyways, I'm going with Sam Patterson, round 1 submission. The reason I'm doing that is this guy looks like he doesn't know jiu-jitsu, like the basics. One basic thing in jiu-jitsu is you'll be taught, if a guy takes your back, you don't keep your hands on the floor and allow your opponent to lock it up. You need to start defending against the arms. Kiefer Crosbie acted like his controller disconnected and just laid there on the ground, 2 hands against Kevin Ducey, a kickboxer by the way, who ends up submitting him because he doesn't know how to grab onto the arms. He just let him do it. It was like he bet on the other guy to let himself win by submission. Now I'm joking, but I'm just saying, jiu-jitsu is 0. And when you've got a grappler against a striker who, in my opinion, does not look good at even defending takedowns, I can't really pick him to win. He is not a TikToker, but he fought on like one of those Misfits cards, and he did boxing. I can't trust him to knock out Patterson. But if you wanted to do a little bit on him, I could see why, because that first round is dangerous for Patterson if he doesn't bring him down. Because don't get me wrong, offensively, Patterson, alright kicking, but he hasn't got that great boxing. He doesn't move his head, and his chin is very suspect. Not only this fight here, it has been in previous things. Like even in the Contender, his chin, there's questions to be asked about it. But if he can bring you down, fight's over. Right, here is probably one of the most entertaining fights on the card. Not just because it's the name, it's because of the backstory as well. The fact that apparently, quote, they fought backstage and he cut his head open. I don't know if that was a lie, but Manel Cap's not going to admit that and then potentially get either a lawsuit. Like, I don't know what you lot do in America, but he could get fined. So of course he isn't going to admit it. But I kind of believe that that story could have happened. And who am I going to pick? I know it's painful, but Mokaev is going to win. And I don't think he's going to submit him. I think it's going to be a controversial decision. The one thing I don't like about Manel Cap is, although he has loads of power, he can be inactive on the feet at times, which is why you saw Felipe dos Santos overwhelming with volume, not winning the fight, but catching him in the head a lot. And I think if he waits too long, Mokaev is the complete opposite. He rushes to get straight into the fight by shooting that double leg. And that's what I believe is going to happen. I think Mokaev is going to go out there early and start shooting for the legs. And because Manel Kape, although he's got jiu-jitsu, he's not one of these like guys who, when someone tries to take him down, he's jumping onto guillotines every minute. He's the type of guy to try and defend the takedown. But I think he's going to struggle because Mokaev is a guy, when he gets you down, you struggle to get up. And when you get up, he brings you back down. The only problem with his grappling is he tends to get caught in submissions a lot on the ground. I don't really fear that with a guy of Manel Kape. But one thing which might make you scared about picking Mokaev, go to round 3 in his fights. They are very dangerous because in the fight with Perez, I believe he was starting to get a bit tired and pretty much like stalling on the takedown. If he gets tired at any point in the fight, Manel Kape is going to iron him out because Mokaev's striking is actually horrendous. It is rubbish. I'm not going to sit here and say it's all right. It is bad. It is really bad. If he dares, like this guy KO'd Kayakasora, and that guy is really talented on the feet. So, like his body shots, the kneeing to the body, Kayakasora, very good. Manel Kape put him down because he put on like a high pace when he got hurt. And I think he'd do the same to Mokaev if it got to that point. But I think Mokaev's just going to be relentless with the takedown. So Manel Kape's going to be like, he just can't get up. And when he builds his way back up to the feet, he's going to get dragged back down. I'm hearing he's had like not the greatest weight cut and he's being the lowest he has ever been in his career, which is not great. The less you weigh, the easier it is going to be for Mokaev to get the takedowns. You might think he'll be more agile. Fair enough, but Mokaev's the type of guy where even if you're moving out the way, he's going to keep shooting in like Merab. But the difference with Merab and Mokaev is he can hold someone down. Like, he can maintain the control over the opponent. He gets people down. He doesn't just lose positions and end up on his back. He might lose the position and get caught into like a submission, but then fight out of that submission and then be on top of you again. So I want Manel Kape to win, but I just see it being a fight where Mokaev, it's going to be controversial. I think Kape will win the 3rd round, but Mokaev rounds 1 and 2 is just going to be on top of him, trying to just survive the round by laying on top of him, not getting that submission. Manel Kape's just going to be getting frustrated, trying to get off his back, maybe being a bit offensive, like throwing some elbows out of anger because he's just being annoying by just holding him down, and he'll end up winning a decision 29-28, where people would say that I think Manel Kape won the fight. But I do think, unfortunately, Mokaev will win. Right, Oban Elliott versus Preston Parsons. I'm actually shocked by the amount of people picking Oban Elliott to win the fight. I am very confident Parsons will win the fight. Why am I confident? Oban Elliott doesn't have power. If he had power, it would be a dangerous matchup for Parsons because, again, one of these fighters where if you can catch him with a good shot on the chin, you can put him out. He lost to Mike Perry in a different organisation. He also got KO'd by Daniel Rodrigues, but he's a guy who's got a very fast jab and he will stop you from pressuring. If you've got a good jab and you don't move your head like Parsons doesn't really do, you're going to struggle. But Oban Elliott doesn't. And Oban Elliott's the type of guy, when he's going backwards, he actually struggles to strike. And he can get a bit overzealous at times. And that led to him actually getting rocked. And it weren't a knockdown, but you could say he got dropped because he went to his knees after the punch against, what was his name? Val Woodburn. And I think Preston Parsons is the better grappler. And his jiu-jitsu scrambling ability, transitions or whatever, very good. Like against Giles. You could argue he won that fight, but I did just go with Giles, but there's an argument to be said with that. And the only way you're going to really beat him is by knocking him out. I don't see him going out there and out-grappling him because he's the type of guy where if you just try and shoot constantly, he will find the submission. He's got very good submissions, but I do think it's going to be one of those sloppy ones, and I think, again, another decision. So usually UFC London cards are quite good, but I don't expect there to be a lot of like flash knockdowns or knockouts in this card. I can see probably quite a few decisions, and I think this is another one where Parsons is the better striker. He's the better grappler. I think he's better than him in all areas. The only problem I have is if he gives away his back and he gasses out. That's my only concern, because Oban Elliott, again, is not a great striker. They're not too like different in age as well, so we don't really need to look into that. And I think there's a lot of value on Parsons in the fight. Right, Modestas Bukauskas versus Marcin Prachnio. For me, again, Modestas Bukauskas, I don't think he's going to knock him out a decision. Marcin Prachnio's been picking up a bit of form recently, but the way he strikes, I think he'll struggle because he's fighting against a bum. Devin Clark is like a bum in the UFC when you compare him to like a lot of these light heavyweights. And then losing to Prachnio by arm triangle, getting held down, I don't factor that into this fight because it's not a fight where it's going to be on the ground. But then William Knight, like the wins he's been picking up recently, they're not good name value wins. The only good win I believe he got, what was his name? I think he fought Khalil Rountree and won. That is the only good win. Like, he loses against half-decent strikers, and I think Bukauskas is better than him. One thing Marcin Prachnio can do is throw spinning kicks. They're not going to work because Modestas Bukauskas, he's got a good hook on him. The only thing about him is his bones, and he can be chinny. Like, you look at that loss to Prachnio, that check hook early. It's Prachnio with loads of power. But then I can see in a weird way, it shouldn't happen, but could happen because it's MMA. Marcin Prachnio throwing like a spinning wheel kick that just catches Modestas and puts him down. But it shouldn't on paper. On paper, Modestas should be going out there, overloading him with volume because he's a bit older, putting him on the back foot because if he puts him on the back foot, those kicks are going to be too hard to land. And his boxing is not great, whereas Modestas' boxing is good. So I think he's going to push him up against the cage and not allow him to throw these kicks. And then he's pretty much going to be struggling on the feet to compete because he just can't land. So yeah, I'm going with him. Right, here's another fight where I think there's good value. Caolan Loughran versus Jake Hadley. I'm actually going with Hadley, and I think he's going to win via... There is a chance of a submission, but I'm trying to think, how is he going to win? By a decision or submission? I'm going to go with Nah. Actually, yes, I am going to go with a submission, and I think he'll submit him in the second round. I had to have a quick think about it because I'm trying to think how Loughran fights. He's a very stiff, like bulky type of bantamweight, whereas you're going to be like, oh, Jake Hadley moving up, he's going to struggle. But I believe he's actually bigger than what you think. Like flyweight, he's going to be dying trying to make that weight. Well, not dying, but you know what I mean. Flyweights are like, it's not a healthy weight for anybody or any male, for example. That's going to crash your testosterone. But again, Loughran, he's very stiff. And when he comes up against a guy who's fast, like we saw it with, what was his name, Taylor Lapilus, he was able to just use that jab and establish range, and Caolan Loughran just couldn't break past it. And Jake Hadley's the type of guy where I can see him doing something similar. He's kind of got that like Arnold Allen stance at times where he lifts up that left elbow, or sometimes even the right elbow, depending on what stance is in, and like bounces on the toes. But I think those body shots could cause a problem, especially with how much muscle this guy carries on his frame. He can get a bit tired. He's very hittable on the head. I can see a decision win for Hadley, but one thing I've noticed with Loughran, when it gets a bit frustrating for him in a fight, he can resort to shooting on him. So I think the striking is going to go like wrong. He's struggling to land on Jake Hadley clean, and you've got him circling out and keeping his back off the cage. So now he's shooting him for like a double leg or something, or even a single leg. And as he's shooting on for this single leg, I can see Jake Hadley getting taken down. But because Caolan Loughran's just looking to do damage and try and like lay in his guard and try and posture up a little bit and then like fire down like an elbow, I can see Jake Hadley locking up a triangle choke. And once that triangle choke gets locked in against Loughran, he's tapping out because Jake Hadley's jiu-jitsu is very high level. The only type of guys who are going to be able to defend against it are people like what was his name, Nascimento, who've got a good wrestling base compared to with the jiu-jitsu. But I think Loughran's very submittable, the way he grapples. He isolated the legs against Taylor Lapilus, but that's because Taylor Lapilus has struggled. When he goes down to the ground, he can struggle to get up straight away, but his initial takedown defense, if you can't originally get him down to the ground, is great. But I think Jake Hadley, for me, frustrated him with his striking in the first round. And then the second round, the submissions are going to come by Caolan Loughran getting frustrated and just making mistakes that he shouldn't make but will make. And I don't think he can knock out Jake Hadley. I believe he got dropped against Charles Johnson, but Charles Johnson, fast, he can hit you with punches you don't see like coming. Look what he did to Joshua Van. He's actually becoming an established flyweight. As much as I don't want to say it, he actually is. And there is also an argument that he actually beat Mokaev on damage, which I know sounds strange, but there was an argument about that. Like, he was not a bad fighter. So, yeah, I'm going with Hadley. Right, Molly McCann versus Bruna Brazil. If it was the old Molly McCann, she might have a chance. But now she's learned jiu-jitsu, and I'm hoping she can defend against a takedown. She should be able to beat Bruna Brazil. Bruna Brazil just walks you down pretty much. No guard. Well, sometimes she's got a guard, but in the fight against Denise Gomez, no guard and just walking you down, trying to like land hooks on you and straight punches. If you do that against Molly McCann, you're going to get ironed out, and I think she will. So I'm going with Molly McCann, round 1 KO. It's not like one of those fights back in the day. Remember the Julio Stoliarenko or whatever it was, when she goes out there and is able to just get her down. And that was a proper MMA fighter versus pure striker. Now, she can do a bit of jiu-jitsu. Like, I know it's not that good, but she beat Diana Balbita by an armbar. No one expected that. They expected her to win by probably a knockout or to a decision. But she can do it, so I think she's going to be able to keep it on the feet. Bruna Brazil's going to walk into a left hook and get ironed out. Like, the power this woman has, for a woman, is a lot. Because this woman has been knocked out before, and when a woman gets knocked out in MMA, like dropped and finished, it doesn't look good because they weigh less, they don't hit as hard. But then you can say they weigh less, which means their punch resistance won't be that good. But that doesn't take away from the fact of like Molly McCann's power, which is good for a woman. And I expect that power to be able to knock out someone like Bruna Brazil. Here, this should be the lock of the fight. And I say should be, as long as Nathaniel Wood doesn't mess about and look to go for takedowns to mix it up for the sake of it, he will win this fight here. And I think he'll win it via a decision. But then again, there is a chance that he could TKO him, because with this guy here, Pineda, I'm a bit suspect of his chin. I know Cub Swanson beat him. And you're going to be like, well, it's Cub Swanson. But Nathaniel Wood's not really a power puncher. He's still at featherweight, even though I think he might be better off at bantamweight because of his speed. But featherweight hasn't got that many hard hitters, and all this guy here is a jiu-jitsu guy. Like, there's no striking, the wrestling's mid. Nathaniel Wood, I think if it was just pure wrestling, he could actually handle with him. Like, he could deal with it, but then when you mix up jiu-jitsu in the mix, he hasn't got a chance with the jiu-jitsu. So he will outbox this guy and put the work on him. Leg kicks, pretty much double jab, cross. It's going to be a fight where he just lights him up. And it looks like a complete mismatch, which it is. And I think they're just putting it on there so we can have like a potential finish, but a fight where it's a very high pace and a lot of things are going on with Nathaniel Wood, pretty much using Daniel Pineda as a boxing bag, because that's all that's going to happen. Unless he makes a mistake, throws a kick, falls off balance, that's where problems like come. Like Nazim Sadiakov, no, what's his name? Mahib Naimov, not Sadiakov. He dropped him and was able to take him down. You're not dropping Nathaniel Wood, so your best bet is he falls off balance and gives away his back. But I think he's got enough composure and his stance isn't weak to deal with that. So yeah, he'll win. Right, Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. I believe this fight could end up being like the fight was with Calvin Kattar for Giga Chikadze, where Arnold Allen, in a long time, he doesn't really do it. I think he'll mix up the takedowns. So I think I can't trust him to do it, but I think his submission is there in round 3. But what I think Arnold Allen's going to do is fight him to a decision. I don't think he's going to grapple that much. I think he's going to keep it on the feet, where Giga Chikadze could win the first round, because I actually do think technique-wise he's better than Allen on the feet, but his cardio lets him down. Arnold Allen's more explosive, and you could argue he actually does carry more power in the first round than Giga Chikadze, because Giga Chikadze, or it might look like he has more power, because he comes out very aggressive and blitzes opponents with combinations. I don't think a guy like Giga Chikadze can deal with that. Like, if he gets blitzed early, can he deal with that onslaught? No. But if Arnold Allen does his, like, old-fashioned stance, bouncing on the toes, it could make it to round 2, and I think it will. And then I think that's where he'll mix up the grappling. But then again, I'm not in Arnold Allen's brain, so I cannot guarantee you that he will do that. But I think it'd be very smart for him to do that. Bring him down to the ground and even look for the submission, but I know he won't. So what he will do is he'll keep it on the feet, and it'll be another like good striking battle, but I think he'll win 29-28. I think he'll mix up the grappling in round 3 and then look for the submission. The first 2 rounds striking where Giga Chikadze might take the first round, but then he would have given his all in that first round. And Arnold Allen comes out in the second round, all guns blazing again, because he has got good cardio. I thought he won that Evloev fight. Rounds 1 and rounds 3, he did more. Evloev just got the takedown in round 1, a powerful one. I believe it was round 1, and everyone thought he won because he did that. He didn't land any strikes. He didn't do any damage, whereas Arnold Allen was being more active, even though he was hurt in round 2, comes out more aggressive. And I don't think Giga Chikadze can put on that type of cardio. In round 3, he slows down. And I think in this fight here, he will slow down in round 3. And there is a potential finish in round 3. I don't think it'll be a first round. I can see later on in the fight. So yeah, I am going with Allen. But there is a little bit of value on Chikadze in the first round, but nothing significant. Because if he wins that first round, I am still picking Allen to win. Right, here is a very hard fight to pick. Because I've got 2 things in my mind. One, Gregory Rodrigues' chin is suspect, but then he can mix up grappling. And we know that Christian Leroy Duncan's grappling is not it. It really isn't. He can be held down. And Gregory Rodrigues has got underrated, jiu-jitsu. He can take your back and submit you. He did something to Armen Petrosyan, which Armen Petrosyan did to Leroy Duncan. And that's why I'm a bit scared going with Duncan. He's younger, only by a little bit, but his striking on the feet is dangerous. And this kind of reminds me of a striker versus grappler situation. But you know what? I'm going to have to go with Duncan, and I'm going to go over round 1 KO because I think Rodrigues will keep it on the feet early. I don't think he's the type of guy to immediately shoot in 1 minute into the round with the takedowns. But I think if he wins the first round, Gregory Rodrigues, if the fight reaches round 3, he will win the fight. I do not see the fight going to a decision in Duncan's favour because I just think Rodrigues, if he can bring him down to the ground, which I think he's going to try to eventually, he won't know what to do because if you're getting out-grappled by Armen Petrosyan, a kickboxer, I don't have that much faith. And the wins here, they look good on paper. But Gregory Rodrigues is better than both of them fighters there. Come on. But I do expect, I think Leroy Duncan's going to go out there and look for the finish early. And if he does, he's got good flying knees, he's got good kicks, his boxing is his only problem. I know he beat Dennis Tillulin with boxing, but that's Dennis Tillulin, who's really bad. Rodrigues has got good boxing, his chin will let him down, his defensive, striking is not great. And I think if Leroy Duncan can keep at range and start kicking him, he can get a head kick knockout. I can really see that head kick coming because he don't move his head. Rodrigues, footwork isn't that great. He can kind of plant his feet into the ground, be heavy on that front leg, and then I can just see him whipping out that high kick to the head and just knocking him out cold. But then again, I am scared about the grappling of Rodrigues if he goes out there and just hugs him on the floor and finds the back and submits him, but I don't think he will. Right, Bobby Green versus Paddy Pimblett. I'm actually surprised by the movement. I actually thought more people were picking Green. I'm going with Pimblett. People hate him. It's going to be an Ian Gary all over again where you think that this guy, because you hate him, you're just praying he loses, so you go with the other guy. Yes, on paper, Green can win because he's a better striker than Paddy Pimblett. But you know what? I'm going to have a hot take here. I think Paddy Pimblett is going to drop Bobby Green in the fight. People are forgetting that Bobby Green got dropped by a washed-up Tony Ferguson. Yeah, he won the fight, but he had to resort to grappling at one point. I don't think he knocked down Tony Ferguson. The only reason he won that fight in Tony Ferguson's mind is because he kind of eye-poked him and his eye was damaged. That's not why he won it, in my opinion. I think just because as the fight goes on, he can grow in confidence. But I think Paddy Pimblett's one of those guys where Green, he's not that powerful. He knocked out, what was his name? Grant Dawson, but he's got no chin. No chin whatsoever, in my opinion. I just don't think he has. He's on the ground half the fight. Paddy Pimblett has got a granite chin. I don't care what anyone says. Jared Gordon hit him with shots where if that's anyone out, they're getting knocked out. Bobby Green, he started off well against Jared Gordon, but then as soon as he started growing into the fight, he started landing more on Bobby Green, getting a read for what Bobby Green was doing. He went in with the headbutt and then he started complaining, thinking he deserved the knockout when he didn't. And I'm not going to call him king because that just sounds cringe. It just sounds like I'm demasculizing myself and being who is he to be called king? It's a bit cringe. It's not for me to say, but anyways, I'm not calling him that. So Bobby Green, how is he going to win? I think he's going to get knocked down and submitted. And I think, I'm going to go with round 1. Because I think Paddy Pimblett comes out aggressively. If he came out a bit passive, a bit shy, I'd be like maybe a round 2. But the way he fights, I can see it ending in the first round. Because Bobby Green, again, his chin isn't that great either. So you're trusting a 37-year-old guy who's old against a young up-and-coming prospect who is a bit overrated, but is actually good. Like, Paddy Pimblett, as overrated as he is a good fighter. I don't think he will become champion, but he can definitely be in the rankings. And he isn't like Jim Miller either, where he'll just stand there and take a beating and not shoot in. If it doesn't go his way, he will shoot in. And Bobby Green, yes, he's got good takedown defense and all of that. But Paddy Pimblett, he doesn't have to go for your like normal takedowns. How is Bobby Green going to defend when Paddy Pimblett goes for that judo throw? Like, people forget he's got good throws and trips. He doesn't have to go for the pure muscle takedowns and all the takedowns revolve strength. He can go for the ones that throw people down to the ground and stuff. So I expect Paddy Pimblett to drop him in the fight and then look for the submission. And people are going to be confused to how did he get dropped by him? Well, because Bobby Green, for one, he hasn't got a great chin. He's old. He's been dropped by a washed-up Tony Ferguson. He was getting hit in the head a lot by Jared Gordon. Drew Dober, remember that fight there? Started off well. So realistically, now, you know what? I'll move it to round 2 because he does start off well. And I can expect him maybe to win the first round. And then second round, that's when he ends up getting thrown to the ground. Or maybe even knocked down and then getting submitted. Curtis Blaydes versus Tom Aspinall. At this rate, Tom Aspinall wins on paper, but I'm going with Tom Aspinall. For me, he's going to be the GOAT of heavyweight. I'm sorry. You might not like it, but we haven't seen a guy like this. People bring up Cain Velasquez, but his striking weren't his level. Wrestling, yeah, but combined with the jiu-jitsu as well, I don't think his jiu-jitsu was better than Tom Aspinall. Maybe his pure grappling was better. And Blaydes' grappling is better than Aspinall. And you could argue his power's up there with Aspinall, but what will lose him the fight is the speed of Aspinall. I think, I know I said before it looked like he started off better against Aspinall, but if you go back and look at it, they're scuffing him. They're actually hitting him in the shoulder, not flush on the chin, but the camera angle at first made you believe that. And I think Tom Aspinall is going to win by KO. Blaydes is the type of guy where really he should be looking to go out there and wrestle, put Tom Aspinall on his back. No one tends to do that. But I know he's going to go out there and try and get a bit confident with his striking. And I can expect, again, another round 1 KO by Tom Aspinall. I believe he's up there with Pavlovich for the shortest average fight time in UFC history. It might be. And I think he's going to continue the streak here. Blaydes, that was a good win to get against Almeida, but he didn't look good earlier on. But then he's just got that power where if he touches you, it's one of those weight classes where if he can just touch him on the chin, he can knock him out. He has got all the abilities possible to do it. But I think Aspinall's head movement, his fight IQ at times, he's just more athletic than Blaydes. And I think that speed's going to throw him off a lot because who's the quickest guy Blaydes has fought? You could argue Rosenstrike. Pavlovich is kind of fast, but he plants his feet into the ground as he throws punches. Rosenstrike is fast, but you bring him down to the ground, and I think with Tom Aspinall, he could. And to be fair, we haven't really seen Aspinall's takedown defense tested. So it's actually kind of hard to say about that. So I'm just going based off what I've seen by him and what Curtis Blaydes does. He doesn't use his brain when he fights. So fight IQ is off for Blaydes a lot of the time. Trying to strike with Pavlovich instead of getting that takedown. And could beat him to a decision. He don't do that. So I expect Aspinall first round finish. Right, Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad. I think this fight is much closer than people think. Think about all the times they've wrote him off. I remember when he fought, what was his name? Gilbert Burns? Injury. Okay, we won't count that one. But if you go to the one with Sean Brady, everyone was saying Sean Brady can outstrike him. He's the better grappler. He's got the jiu-jitsu to go with it as well. He looks bigger than him. He's going to struggle to take him down. It was the opposite. Sean Brady ended up trying to take down Belal Muhammad because he couldn't deal with the striking, and getting KO'd by Belal Muhammad makes me cringe and just doesn't look right, but it happened. And we all know what happened in the first fight here with the eye poke, but he was getting smashed in the head, whacked with a head kick. He couldn't get a feel for the fight. But I think in this fight here, Leon will win the fight, but I don't think he's going to knock him out. Like, I know he got knocked out by Luque, but I can see it going to a decision. I think a submission is more likely. And let me tell you why. I know it sounds so stupid. Like, how was he going to get a submission? When was the last time he submitted someone? Bilal Muhammad's going to go out there with a Colby approach. He's going to do the Usman method. Constantly shooting because his striking won't compete. And he isn't going to have a Nate Diaz moment. Like, Nate Diaz is known for that. Like, he can have that type of moment in a fight. He ain't Nate Diaz. So that's not going to happen. But he might shoot on Leon Edwards. And eventually, when you shoot on someone constantly in a fight who's throwing kicks, you do get the takedown eventually. Like look at other sports. If you do something constantly, it's like when you play tennis. I know this is the most random analogy, but you have so many games in a game of tennis. And because there's so many games, eventually your opponent's probably going to win one of them. And I'm going to compare that to the takedowns of Bilal Muhammad, where because he's going to shoot for so many takedowns in the fight, he's going to land one of them. And when he gets them, he's going to try and lay on top of him. And this is where we see how good as Leon Edwards is transitioning. Well, it's all right, but not amazing, because if you look later on in the fight with Colby was able to get the takedown, and although he didn't do anything significant, he was able to hold him down. And Colby ain't that big. I don't think Colby's bigger than Bilal Muhammad, and Bilal Muhammad isn't huge, but he ain't bigger than him. And if he's able to do it, maybe, and just maybe in rounds 4 and 5, I can see Bilal Muhammad like winning, but he won't win the fight because he hasn't got the finishing ability. But I can see him winning the later rounds. So I expect Leon to win rounds 1 to 3, where you could argue round 3 is a swing round. So I actually can see a fight where it's a controversial win, but because everyone hates Bilal Muhammad, they're going to say Leon Edwards won, even if Bilal Muhammad had a good chance of winning, like if it's a good shout. But the reason I brought up a submission being possible is because he will leave his chin exposed a lot. And we've seen, look what he did to Kamaru Usman. If it weren't for cheating and grabbing onto the glove, we might have seen a round 1 submission by Leon Edwards. And I think here, there will be a back take in the fight with Leon Edwards. But I don't think he'll finish it, because a lot of the time, he can get into a position where he looks like he might get the submission, but he just doesn't get the submission. And I think that could happen here. So yeah. So I expect Leon Edwards to put on a battering for the first 1.5 rounds, and then a momentum change to happen, but he just won't do enough to win the fight Bilal Muhammad for me. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.